don't have any character defects. Sorry. Sorry, that's not me. I have strengths, I have weaknesses, and I have misconceptions. That's the biggest gift I've gotten from Mara is that I don't feel shame that much anymore. I'm a human being and I'm imperfect and I strive to be better. And that's it. Shame kills. Doesn't help anybody thinking they're a defect to think that they've been stigmatized. You're not in recovery because you're on, that medication. First off, that individual telling you that, they're not a physician and they know nothing about it. Zero. The medication helps save people's lives, helps their brain chemistry to restabilize, helps their frontal cortex to heal so that they can take in the information that they're getting from whichever program resonates with them, whichever peer support group resonates with them. I still get teary. I can't believe that 4 people are going to die today in this state, on average, from an overdose. And why? Because they didn't think there was another way. We have no idea what someone's thinking about and what they need to get out, and maybe what they were thinking about before they opened their mouth. They might have been thinking about, this is it, I can't do this anymore. And I don't know if you've been there personally, but I've been there a lot of times. And I find Mara to be utterly compassionate, completely, utterly compassionate and empathetic. And that's what resonates with me. Empathy, compassion, and non-judgment.
A lot of people who are leaving 12 step, they actually still want to stay in recovery and they want a recovery path that might feel more safer to them or might resonate more with them. So if that's you, if you're looking for another recovery path, or if you're looking to get sober in the first place and you're trying to figure out which recovery path is good for you, you are in for a treat today. Today we have Bob here from Mara. We're going to unpack all of what that is. That is Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous. I am personally super excited about this path of recovery. By the way, I am Kirsten. Welcome to Sobriety Bestie Podcast. We are going to dive in right now. So, Bob, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kirsten.
Yeah, I'm delighted to have you here because in you reaching out to share Mara with me, I actually did a bit of research and I am super excited on this as a recovery path. I love the non-judgmental approach of Mara and I've experienced it personally, which I can't wait to share with you. So really, this is such a delight today to do this with you. And I want to start off just so that we get the context of before you even got into Mara, what were you doing for recovery, or did you jump into Mara when you first came to recovery?
I was at a Narcotics Anonymous business meeting, and there was a difference of opinion regarding medications for treating addiction. And I maintained that a person is clean, using NA language, if they're on MAT, such as Suboxone, Sublocade, or Vivitrol. And I was told, no, they're not. And I said, well, there's pamphlets that said that they were. And they said, no, there aren't. And what I had done was I had confused 2 separate pamphlets produced by 2 different, I don't know the word, parts of NA. And one was on mental health medications, and the other one was on MAT medications. And
And MAT is
medication
medication assisted.
assisted treatment or medication assisted therapy.
Okay.
So the bottom line was that I was wrong. I had to apologize to the person that I had the disagreement with. It got heated. I asked them, where are these people supposed to go then? And I was told, We are a program of complete abstinence. They can go elsewhere. And at that moment, I knew I was finished with NA. And the reason for that is this. In the state of South Carolina in the year 2023, 5 people died from drug overdoses every single day on average. In the year 2024, 4 people died of a drug overdose on average daily in the state of South Carolina. In my participation at the governor's conference in December, we learned that the reason it went from 5 to 4 is because of the Narcan kiosks
Mm.
that they had put up around different places in the state. And they maintained that we're going to roll this out in a lot of different areas. It may take some time, but we're going to roll it out to make sure that free Narcan distribution takes place in the state of South Carolina. And the effort is to lower the deaths. And that's really why I invest so much of my time in communicating and educating at least this area where I live about the benefit that Marek has over all the other 12-step programs that are based on traditional 12-step Oxford group slash AA, whether it's AA, NA, FA, CA, that pretty much follow the same dynamic. I asked FA if they're a complete abstinence program, and I couldn't get a straight answer.
That's
All right.
food, right?
I communicated with after this business meeting, my final business meeting with NA. I communicated with people up at the top of the corporate ladder within NA, one individual, and I was told 6 ways to Sunday that we're a complete abstinence program. And if someone is taking buprenorphine for pain management, that's okay. If someone's taking buprenorphine to handle cravings and so forth, that's not okay. So basically, NA told me that we differentiate mental health medications from addiction medications. Mental health medications are okay, addiction medications are not. So essentially, if you're on mental health medication, you're clean. If you're on addiction medication, you're not. And I maintain that that creates a ton of shame. I experienced it when I revealed in a meeting that I had been on MAT that nobody knew about.
Mm.
And I was told in the meeting in front of others, you're not clean. Or maybe maybe I personally, I was told that an individual on those medications aren't clean. So that's why I went online and I Googled 12-step recovery programs, harm reduction. I think I used the word harm reduction based. MARA came up, Medication Assisted Recovery Anonymous. And when I dug into the history, I found out that the person who created it back in 2018 in a women's prison in Texas was a member of AA and didn't like what he was seeing. And he asked a lot of people, if what you like and what you don't like about it, and essentially took a lot of that information and uh, created with AA's permission. And there's a disclaimer that AA requested be placed on the steps. Uh, Said, yeah, you can go ahead and create your own. That's fine. Just make sure you let people know that we're in no way affiliated and that this was, it says right here, while the 12 steps and 12 traditions of Mara were inspired by AA's 12 steps and 12 traditions, they are not an adaptation. Rather, they were created specifically for this organization and should not be construed otherwise. AA is a program concerned only with the recovery of alcoholism and is not not in any way affiliated with this fellowship. So the steps that we have are way different. Number one, religion neutral. There's no religion in the steps. There's no requirement to believe in God. There's no requirement to believe in a higher power. And the reason for that is to neutralize it, because religion has a tendency to divide people. Some people are religious, some people aren't. And that's really important. Another principle that came down from the 12 steps, powerless. Now, I may have been powerless when I was in active addiction, but I'm not powerless today. As a matter of fact, I don't even label myself as an addict or an alcoholic any longer because I see that as negative stigma. There's no need for me to be reminded of what I am. I know what I am. I don't need to label myself with a shameful noun, right, or adjective, whatever it is. you know, there's no need for that. So we practice empowerment, not powerless. That's huge. A lot of people have a hard time wrapping their minds around this. What? No higher power? You can't get clean without a higher power. It's like, well, a lot of people do actually. So basically these steps, there's no hierarchy. We don't celebrate clean time because we recognize that time does not equal recovery. There's a lot of people in the program I've witnessed that they're completely abstinent, or claim they are and probably are, but they've got some behaviors that I just shake my head and go, not me, not in recovery. And that's not everybody, that's a few. So the hierarchy of I have more clean time than you, so I know more than you, that's BS. You know, I I have benefited personally from a person walking into their first MARA meeting with 2 minutes clean, probably, and have said something that touched my heart. It hit me right here, and I was able to utilize that in my own recovery. So I don't have a perception of just because, so and so has 10 years clean and so has 10 minutes clean, that the 10 years clean has more to offer than the 10-minute clean. That's not necessarily the case, so we don't go there. We also don't have
Right.
sponsor sponsee, and you can shut me up anytime. We don't have sponsor sponsee. And people say, well, how can you get clean without a sponsor? How can you be sober without a sponsor? Well, we don't really use the clean and sober terminology. We basically say we have wise counsel and we learn to identify those individuals in our life where we place trust in our community, or even, whatever community that is, that can serve as wise counsel for us. If I have a legal question, I'm sorry, she's printing something. I told her. Anyway, hold on a second. You'll have to edit. So I was saying, what we have is we learn that wise counsel can be anybody. We don't place all of our trust in just one person. However, if you want to approach it that way, approach these steps and utilize someone as and call them, label them a sponsor, that's okay. See, because there's total freedom with marriage. It's like we let each individual define what recovery means for them, because everybody's got a different definition. Why would I want to impose and force a definition upon someone when everybody thinks recovery is different? So we encourage freedom. And Mara obviously believes in the value of prescribed medication. So if I'm being honest with myself and being honest with my therapist and being honest with my physician and being honest with my addiction physician, and everybody's together, not necessarily they're meeting in a room as a team or anything, but everybody's on the same page. If one of them prescribes something for me and says, Bob, I think this would be a value and benefit, the benefits outweigh the risks. Well, okay, I'll try it. I mean, you're the professional, you're the boss. Um, so yeah, if people are on prescribed medications, there's probably a really good reason why that is. And we don't tell anyone when you're getting off that stuff. That's none of my business, nor am I can't think of the word. I'm just not a professional to be speaking with. That's between you and your physician. We're not physicians.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, we say that at the beginning of the meeting, that we don't give medical advice. I can share my experience with medications, and we can talk about all kinds of things at our meetings. We can talk about our medications. We can talk about what it's doing. We can talk about, gee, I'm thinking of cutting back. I'm thinking of increase. I'm thinking of changing, whatever that is. We can talk about anything. Imagine walking into an AA meeting and the chairperson says, hey, has anybody got a topic they'd like to discuss? And the hands go up and they go, Bob, what's your topic? Let's talk about harm reduction. You can't talk about that in an AA meeting. Harm reduction, or let's talk about the Sinclair method. I've heard that the Sinclair method has helped 80% of the people completely within 1 year extinguish the desire to drink. Let's talk about that.
Mhm.
No. But at a Mara meeting, you can. As a matter of fact, at a Mara meeting, you'll meet individuals that were successful with the Sinclair method. So at Mara, it's all about today. It's all about living safely today. And I wrote this down. It's on the Mara website, but this is kind of important. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, they're called SAMHSA, if it's pronounced that way. They define recovery as recovery. It's a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. Mara defines recovery as simply to recover from an unsafe lifestyle, reclaim stability, reconnect with purpose, and build a life that reflects your worth. I don't know about you, but to me, I've never heard that messaging anywhere else in my life. And the 12-step process is really cool. I was excited to go through the 12 steps in Mara because there was no shame-based language in there. I didn't feel less than. I didn't feel like a defect. I didn't feel broken. I felt inspired. I felt loved. I felt
Mhm.
trusted. And I felt empowered. And I proceeded through the steps fairly quickly. I went through the 12-step process. It took me about 3 months, maybe a little over 3 months. My fourth step was amazing. It was amazing because I didn't look at character defects. I don't have any character defects. Sorry. Sorry, that's not me. I have strengths, I have weaknesses, and I have misconceptions. And what has gotten me in more trouble than anything are my reactions, and they still get me in trouble. It's about emotional regulation, and I'm just beginning to learn that process with the help of now. I can look at myself without judgment and understand that yes, I have strengths, weaknesses, and misconceptions. And my fourth step uncovered those strengths, weaknesses, and misconceptions. And guess what? Some of my misconceptions, once I knew what they were, I was able to take some of my weaknesses, spin them in a different light, and move that to my strengths column so that I had a column of strengths and a column of weaknesses. And, maybe some misconceptions over there too. At the end of the day, I do a 10 step, okay? Like it or not, it's in step 10 and it's a real simple process. I review my day and I think about where did I progress? Where did I regress? And in some days, it's just progress. And some days it's just regress, and some days it's both. And 3 days ago, it was both. At the end of the day, I went, well, I made progress. And the progress was that I recognized what I was doing in the moment. It only took me a few minutes. I was able to flip that around, own my stuff, and apologize. And that's big. 6 months ago, I would have sat in that for a week. It would have taken me a week, and then, I'm sorry, all my stuff. And now it's almost instant, it's just a few minutes. Once the feelings start abating a bit, subsiding, I'm not like drowning with my emotions, and I get a little clarity, then I can take a look at me. And because Mara has taught me to operate with non-judgment towards myself as well as non-judgment towards others, I can just look at the real deal and not feel shame.
Mm.
That's the biggest gift I've gotten from Mara is that I don't feel shame that much anymore. I'm a human being and I'm imperfect and I strive to be better. And that's it. I strive to be better. Sometimes I make it, sometimes I don't. But it's all about today. It's just this 24-hour period of time. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And I don't even know what this afternoon is going to bring. Just like when the printer went off. I didn't know that was going to happen. I thought that there was an understanding that I was going to be in this office for a while. Why? I was pleasant. I went out and I said, yeah, don't do that now because I'm being recorded and it's disturbing the process. So I didn't say it angrily. I just said it matter of factly. Please wait till I'm finished with this, and then we can print what I want. That's a different Bob, and I think my wife appreciates that. She doesn't appreciate me when I
Mm.
get crazy. I do get crazy at times, but in that moment I didn't, and that's because I practiced these ideas. I don't even like the word suggestion. They're not really suggestions. They're ideas to consider, and that's the Mara book. Uh, that was my experience, just ideas to consider and try it on. If it fits, wear it. If it doesn't work, that's okay.
I am so happy for you and your wife and everybody around you with the new you. It's just you're radiating and you're glowing and it's just beautiful to witness the I guess the results that you've gotten through working the Mara steps. So like your newfound recovery and stuff, the new you. It's a delight to hear it in your voice and to feel it in your energy.
But I can hear a question out there. They're saying, but we don't know anything about you, Bob. Like we haven't heard your story. I'm not going to tell my story, but I'll just say this. I had 22 years in recovery. We don't use the word clean, but I'll say I had 22 years clean because I wasn't in Mara at that time. And a doctor said, your PSA is really, really high. And I said, well, how high is high? And he told me, I said, that's high. He said, we're going to have to do a biopsy. I said, how much is that going to hurt? Nothing to it. They did the biopsy and they clipped my inguinal nerve. And when I told them what they'd done, they said, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. When I went back to he wasn't the, when I went back to the person that did it, um, I said to him, I'm in a lot of pain, still. It's not going away. Like, this is not what I was expecting. And he said, I can give you something for that. I said, yeah, but what? And he named what he was going to prescribe me. And I thought, yeah, it is it's considered an opioid, but it's lowest on the totem pole. So I'll probably be okay with it. It wasn't. Anything that I put in that makes me feel good, I don't want to stop. That's my brain. Whether or not anybody believes it, I don't know if it's a disease. I don't know. I just know that that's the way it goes with me. If it makes me feel good, I'm going to want more. I'm not going to want to stop it. For a while, I was actually able to stay on that medication and be okay. And then the surgery came. I had to wait 6 months for the surgery. And then they did the surgery and it did more nerve damage in the inguinal nerve. And they removed all the cancer. They got it all out. That was a good part. But um, yeah, it was a miserable experience for me. My pain doctor was supposed to be present and he took the day off. So he wasn't there to guide them. And all the doctors knew that were there was that this is an addict in recovery and we shouldn't give him anything for pain. So they nerve blocked me. And when I woke up in the worst pain imaginable, and it took them an hour to locate the surgeon, that hour felt like a day. And then he finally gave them the order. Yeah, give him some Toradol, which is a NSAID, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. So they gave me the Toradol, and that eased the pain a little bit. At least I wasn't screaming anymore. But that whole experience was really traumatic for me. Um, it resulted I was on pain clinic for a couple of years, and then I was definitely messing around and doing a lot of what I shouldn't be doing because they wouldn't up the dose. So I took things in my own hand, went online and found stuff that wasn't what it was supposed to be, and almost died a whole bunch of times. And then eventually my NA sponsor died, who I was sharing everything with, and he was very helpful for me. He just died suddenly of a heart condition, and within 2 days I was in treatment. I just knew that it's kind of like this is a sign I need to go into treatment. And I spent six weeks up in North Carolina at a facility that didn't push the 12 steps. I mean, there were people came in at night, but they didn't push that. We learned all CBT and DBT. And when I started reading the Mara book, I go, I know all this stuff. This is what I learned at that treatment facility that was open minded. As a matter of fact, that treatment facility let me go in and present Mara a few months back. I asked them if I could do that, and I did. I don't know if anybody ever went to a meeting, either on Zoom or anybody.
I want to make sure I'm following you. So did I just hear you say that after your surgery you're on these meds and the level of pain was such and they wouldn't up your pain dosage at all so that you were then doing it on your own and that became problematic
That
and then you needed help with that? Is that what you're saying? Why you went back to treatment?
I went to treatment because I wanted to get off everything, and then I tried to
Oh,
get off.
oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay. I'm
I
like,
wanted
there's
to get
something
off
here I'm not
everything.
getting. Okay, I get it.
Like, this isn't
Okay.
working for me. Nothing's working. Let me just get off for everything, and maybe the pain will go down because, well, you probably can't see on here, but I had a tumor they had to take out of my face and several surgeries, and I'm familiar with nerve pain and nerve damage and all that stuff, and pain clinics and all that. That was another precancerous situation 30 years ago. And so that experience was after I came out of treatment, about within a month, I had no pain. And I was taking all that medication. So what happens with opioid is at first it'll work on the pain, but after a while you accommodate to it, and then it flips and it literally produces more pain than what you're taking it for. It starts working in reverse. I forget the term for it. There's a medical term for that. So that's the point that I had reached, and that's why when I went into treatment, I need to get off everything. I'm a mess. I don't feel good. I'm not like I was. I had 22 years clean. Look at me now. Am I ever going to get back to where I was and be the Bob that I
Mm.
remember? Because I'm not the same person right now, and I've literally nearly died a whole bunch of times from overdosing on the stuff that I was buying online and using that in addition to what I was permitted via pain clinic. Yeah, it's a long story. But anyway,
I'm so sorry to hear it.
yeah, well, it's just experience, and the thing is that my experience in having been a survivor, well, I can relate with others. Maybe I can
Yeah.
be of service and help others, because so many people in my life helped me out along the way. I wouldn't be this age if people didn't help me. Left to my own devices, I would have been dead before 30. And because so many people helped me, and even the 12-step programs, they helped me a lot. Um, the people, I think it's the people, the connection I made. I think connection is the most important thing in my recovery today. How I connect with people that are like-minded. I mean, we don't have to agree on everything, but people that are like-minded and are on the same path. We're trying to be better people, and that's what recovery is all about: being a better person. And being helpful. I just want to be helpful today. And my experiences can accommodate that. I got a lot to share, makes me feel emotional.
It got me emotional. Yeah, I'm so glad you're doing so much better. I'm so glad
It's,
you're thriving after all of that and that you trusted
right. So
yourself.
I'm 54 weeks off Sublocade, which is a long-acting form of buprenorphine, otherwise known as Suboxone. So some people know it as Suboxone. But Sublocade is a long-acting shot that they give you. It's liquid when they give you the shot, and it turns into a solid, and then it slowly dissipates over time, over a long, long, long period of time. So I'm 54 weeks away, and right now I'm going through like my second phase of withdrawal. So like the initial phase of withdrawal is as it leaves, slowly leaves, and the brain chemistries, which was stabilized because MAT helps your dopamine, your glutamate. Now there's a third one. I always forget one of them. Dopamine, glutamate. Oh well, and the other one to stabilize, right? And once they stabilize, once those neurochemicals are stabilized, then the frontal cortex is now able to heal. And that's something that people don't realize. They have this misconception that taking, methadone, or this is for opioid addiction, right? So taking methadone or taking Suboxone is like a substitute. No, it's not a substitute. It's a medication to help stabilize neurochemistry so that the person's frontal cortex will heal so that they can go into therapy and go to peer support groups and do what they have to do in order to learn new skills in order to increase their strengths and hopefully decrease their weaknesses and their misconceptions. The medication was really helpful and it stabilized things, but then coming off it, I have a period of instability to go through, and it's a long period. It's
Hmm.
like 2 years. It takes 2 years to get off it for the brain chemistry to stabilize. That's
Yeah.
based on my doctor and what she told me, her conversations with others, and doing medication management and addiction medicine. Is that yeah? It takes about 2 years for it to stabilize. So right now, if I picked up, I'd probably die because my tolerance is so low and I have there's very little left in me at all at this point. So there's no blockade effect. It's not going to blockade anything. That's the advantage of taking Suboxone in the first place. Is if you use on top of it, it's going to act as a blockade. I mean, you can push through it with enough, but for the most part, it'll act as a blockade and you'll live instead of stop breathing.
Was GABA the other neurotransmitter you were thinking
Yeah,
of?
thanks. Yeah, GABA.
Okay, because I know GABA because I was on alcohol. That was my addiction. And then I was on benzos as well, for, like Klonopin for anxiety. So when I got to rehab in 2009, I got off alcohol and off the benzos, and it was all those both work on GABA.
Mhm.
So I'm very familiar with the brain needing to come back to homeostasis after that journey. And in hindsight, with what I know now, I wish I would have gone Sinclair method and taken naltrexone with my drinking to slowly lose interest in drinking over time. Like you said, 80% of the people within 1 year are their brain has moved on so that they can then, if they have other things to unpack underneath, like emotional regulation, trauma, or whatever, they can then work through them. I love how you talk about how it got your brain to like your prefrontal cortex on. It's fascinating.
The prefrontal cortex is the area of the brain that we use for judgment. Now, I understand Mara's is non-judgment, but literally we make judgments all the time, so we have to make
Mhm.
decisions, good, healthy decisions for ourselves. And we have to judge between what's not good and what is good. And the prefrontal cortex is necessary for an individual to get through the first 2 years of recovery because the statistics show that if someone is in recovery for a couple of years, the propensity is very high that they'll have a decade. If you make it through 2 years, most people are going to make it to 10 years. And the yeah, I don't like the word relapse, but the relapse, picking up or going back to it, it just does a lot of damage, and my whole life has been using. Well, much of my life was just using. you know I go in, I couldn't not use for like a day. Even after treatment, I'd get out of treatment within a day I was using. And I mean, so many programs I can't even tell you. But I kept being taught the same lessons. Whereas a normal person, you would think, well, let's see, we'll take you through this course a couple of times, and if you're not getting it, then maybe we need to try a different way.
Yeah. If the treatment isn't working for you, people typically then try a different treatment. They don't blame you if it's not working. They're like, the treatment isn't working for whatever reason, but let's try another treatment on you as an experiment with what's going to work for you versus trying to shove you into one treatment.
It just brought to mind a conversation I had with someone from a traditional program, not too recent, probably goes back, well, I don't know, so a few months anyway. And I told a few months, yeah. So I told them I did the 4-step Amara, and it was incredible. And then I shared it on my 5th step with an individual that I trusted, a guy, and he was able to point out something to me I didn't even know about myself, my personality, that no therapist or anybody else had ever been able to do. And you know what the person said to me? You
Mm.
mustn't have dug deep enough. And I thought, this conversation is ended. It's over. And that's what I do today. I'm an old guy. I'm not 20. I don't know how much time I have left, but I have no time for people who are going to tell me that I didn't dig deep enough. And that's why the Mara 4th and 5th step worked better, because I hadn't dug deep enough in the other times I've gone through the traditional 12 steps. And that's just shameful. It's
Hmm.
shameful to say, and it's shameful to hear. And ever since I've gone to Mara meetings, which has been, I'm now in my 7th month of Mara meeting participation. I don't care if it's in person or Zoom. I have wonderful friends on Zoom now. I have tight relationships. I actually met somebody last month when I was in Massachusetts who started 7 Mara meetings up there. And I got to attend a couple of her meetings. I even went and did one of her commitments because she wasn't feeling well at a treatment facility I used to work at. It was rewarding to me, and it helped heal a lot of the hurt I felt over the way I was being treated by traditional down here. And I'm so happy that I purchased that trip up north and went up there, because I was able to. I saw my former AA sponsor, who is close to death. They took part of his skull off and had to stop a bleed, a brain bleed, and they didn't put the skull back because they didn't think he'd survive this operation. So his head is misshapen. I got a chance to see him and sit with him. And then another friend of mine, who's a guy, male role model, if you will, I was walking up to his front door and a fire truck came up the street, and I thought, oh no, not him. Yeah, yeah, and stopped right at his house. And his daughter opened the door and said, "Who are you?" He never met me. And so I told her, and I said, "I'm here to see so and so." And she said, "He's on his way to the hospital. Not a good time." I said, "Okay, well, send him my love." She said, "I will." And then the next day, I was able to go to the hospital and spend time with him, because he survived, and he didn't die or anything, so that was good. And we had some laughs and chuckles and stuff. So I'm very, very grateful that I was able to go up to that convention because it helped heal the hurt that was still kind of lingering. And now if I see some of these people on the street, I'll just walk up to them if hi, shake your hand, how you doing? It doesn't affect me anymore. I'm not carrying any resentment. Really not. It's just a learning experience for me. When people question my recovery or question my effort or question my anything, it's on them. I know who I am.
100%. There's this phrase that goes, "Keep your eyes on your own yoga mat." But it means beyond yoga, right? It's like just focus on your own practice, your own thing, and yeah.
If someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I tried a different 12-step program. I really like it. It's working for me. And I did a fourth and a fifth step and it uncovered stuff I never got uncovered and all the other work that I did," I would say, "Wow, that's pretty cool. What, wow, that's neat. Maybe I should try a meeting." No, I didn't get that response.
Yeah, there really is an attitude of our way is the only way, 100% in traditional. That's what I experienced. And I love what you're saying, which is that where you're at now and what you're doing, that Mara's steps really align with you and that you've gotten this sense of, I don't know, I guess authenticity, healing, a depth, not that you weren't digging deep before, but there's a depth that you've been able to achieve within your own self, maybe in your relationships, in your life, through the Mara process. And I just want to be clear, at least my understanding, right? Mara is literally 12 steps, but it is not a 12-step program in like the 12-step world. It's not part of AA, NA. It's not one of their 120 spinoffs. It is its entirely own separate thing.
Mhm.
I did read the Mara book yesterday to make sure. I also went to a Mara meeting yesterday just so I could be a little more aware before we spoke. And it made me even more excited to speak with you. It is not AA. It is not
It
NA.
just gave,
Yes, there's 12 steps,
it just gave me goosebumps.
but I even have written down the Mara definition. I wrote it all down. So when you read that, I was like, yeah, I wrote that down too. How to define recovery. It's really my understanding is that it's about wanting to live a safer lifestyle.
See, that's the thing, right? When I thought about it, living a safe lifestyle, that really stopped me in my tracks because this was the first time that a 12-step program had suggested I look at anything outside of addiction. Because living safely today doesn't have anything to do with addiction. Living safely today has everything to do about everything. Living safely, what I'm saying, right? What I'm thinking, what I'm doing,
Mm,
especially when I'm driving. I got a speeding ticket the other day, but I'm going to go fight this one in court. I'm going to go fight it. But yeah, living safely is about everything. So for me, using substances to change my mood is not safe. Not for me. Okay, case shut. You don't have to convince me about complete abstinence. I'm not going to require that of anybody else. But you don't have to convince me because I know me, right? And living safely today is everything to me. And I think it's remarkable that Jeff thought of that because it's what sets us apart from every other program. Because no other program talks about living safely in all
yeah.
aspects of our lives. And that takes care of addiction right off the go. And then it helps me be a better Bob.
A desire to live safely.
A desire to live safely today because all we have is today. It's not about clean time. Look, I can do clean time. It's not about clean time. Recovery is not clean time.
What would you say is the biggest difference between your recovery in NA or traditional recovery and your recovery in Mara now?
Inner peace.
Mm,
I have a sense of self today, and I'm comfortable in my own skin with my imperfections as well as my attributes and my qualities. So without an ego, I can tell you things about me that are strengths and what I'm good at. And I learned a while ago, well, maybe 10 years ago, I learned that it makes more sense to align ourselves with our strengths. So, for example, a job, a career, like align it with my strengths. Don't spend time trying to change a weakness to a strength necessarily. Build strengths and align my life with my strengths and surround myself with people who are strong, but be available for people who are not in order to help them become better. And I think that's what I've gotten from the Mara process is it's been a much deeper dive for me. And there's a lot of people at Mara that are from other programs and still go to other program meetings and so forth, and that's fine. I mean, I do here and there. I mean, if you need a meeting, you need a meeting, right? I mean, I don't care. I'll just go. I mean, if it's that bad. Although there's there's plenty of meetings on my phone. I mean, there's 2 to 5 Mara meetings, Zoom Mara meetings a day. And now that I've been going for a while, I know a whole bunch of people. They're my friends. So I just pick up my phone and go to a meeting, if I need a meeting. So there's not really that need to have to step into it in person. I started 3 in-person meetings in my community this year, and 2 have gotten off the ground slightly, and 1 hasn't yet. But I'm told that there might be some people coming on Friday night, so we'll see. But I'm still educating people because so many people misunderstand what Mara is about. A lot of the traditional people, they don't support this because they don't support harm reduction because they believe that complete abstinence is the only means of recovery and that anything else is nonsense, if you will. But there
Yeah.
are those that, I've spoken to about this program and our process that see the value and benefit, even if they resonate elsewhere. And that's the other thing is Mara's not meant to be this huge program like AA. Like you're not going to walk in the room. It's not going to be 50 people on Zoom, and that's what I like about it. I like that on average you're going to find 8, 10 people maybe in a Zoom meeting. Exceed that too. There's something to be said about being in a room with people that you're familiar with. Not that want newcomers, obviously, but something smaller is pretty good. It gives everybody a chance to speak. Our meetings are run differently. So each meeting has a facilitator, which means don't try one meeting and go, oh, I didn't like it, so Mara stinks. No, try a bunch of them, please. Go to different facilitators because everybody facilitates a little bit different. We have been given some freedom and some latitude to take the meeting in different directions, if you will. But the facilitator, since it's the same facilitator, you kind of get used to their style, and then you find out what resonates and what doesn't. And you find out which meetings are favorites and so forth. But the facilitator has to pay close attention to the person sharing, because at the end of the share, the facilitator is going to give feedback. That's the responsibility of the facilitator to offer feedback. And that's a big difference from a lot of other 12-step programs. Uh, a lot of groups you raise your hand, share, and then you're done or they cut you off. I've never been cut off in a Mara meeting. I've been cut off a lot, I swear. And that's kind of harmful, cutting somebody off. It's not a good thing, because we're sharing because we're trying to get that stuff out. And there's people in the room that might be relating to that. There's people in the
Hmm.
room that might be thinking, maybe I'll raise my hand and share. Like they're starting to get some courage, like maybe, and then you shut them off, and their hand goes down. They're like, I'm not scared. I don't want to get cut off. So we don't cut people off at meetings, but the facilitator gives feedback. Some people they don't resonate with that kind of format. So if you don't like that kind of format, I don't know what to tell you. That's just the way that it is. But I like it because the upside of it is that I know that the person who's facilitating the meeting is listening to what I'm saying. Not only that, but I'm going to get feedback. I'm going to have a sense as to what I was saying. Did it make any sense to anybody? And then as they get offer me feedback, then I know if I was understood or misunderstood.
Yeah, for me, the feedback, I was surprised by it at the meeting I went to yesterday, the Mara meeting. What it felt like, what it was in the one meeting that I went to was acceptance.
Mhm.
It was kind of reflecting back what I said, and then there was this agreement, like, of validating what I said. So it didn't feel like it was feedback. It felt like it was validation. It felt like each person was validated, and maybe that's just how
That's
this
the word I was
facilitator did
trying to
it.
think of, and I couldn't. It wasn't coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
It's,
mirroring back me. It was validation. It wasn't because feedback could be positive or negative or whatever. It was only positive, and it created in me a feeling of connection, like a very warmth and connection in me. I was surprised because I went as a researcher, but I felt like a healing in my heart in it because of the connection and like the validation. I was like, whoa, I came here to take notes so I could, do a podcast about it. I didn't come here for a healing, but I got one. I mean, it was beautiful.
I
I was
witnessed,
surprised.
I witnessed that, and I witnessed the expression in your face, and I knew intuitively what you were going through in here, and I knew that you were feeling really good about being at that meeting, and I knew that you were surprised. And
Totally. Yeah, I liked it.
that particular meeting has a facilitator that will allow the meeting to run on if people still want to share. And that facilitator, it could run 2 hours or 3 hours. It depends on how many people and how many people still want to talk. But she is so giving. I mean, it wasn't even her meeting, and she took it because the person that was supposed to facilitate had an issue that took them away, a health issue that took them away from that, and she just stepped up to the plate, and she does that often. I won't mention her name, but yeah, that's her style. She doesn't shut the meeting down at an hour. Our Zoom meetings are an hour, and most facilitators start on time and end on time. I know when I'm doing an in-person meeting, I start on time and end on time, but I would never shut somebody down because the clock was. I'll let the clock run. I might pause and say, if anybody needs to leave, feel free, but we're going to continue on to give that person an opportunity to get out what they need to get out. Because we have no idea what someone's thinking about and what they need to get out, and maybe what they were thinking about before they opened their mouth. They might have been thinking about, this is it, I can't do this anymore. And I don't know if you've been there personally, but I've been there a lot of times. And I find Mara to be utterly compassionate, completely, utterly compassionate and empathetic. And that's what resonates with me: empathy, compassion, and non judgment. And a psychological process for a mental health issue. Because addiction, active addiction, SUD, AUD, whatever you want to call it, is a mental health issue. So why would I bring church into this? The reason the Oxford group brought church into it is because they were a Christian evangelical organization. And Bill and Dr. Bob were members of it. And essentially kind of took the five precepts and turned it into 12 steps with assistance of others. There were a few of them that wrote the book. And then Bill was the one who benefited from the book. And Bill's mistress, her family still gets money from every book sale. So
Yes.
was that a conflict of interest?
Buying a big book is supporting Bill's betrayal, 100%.
Anyway, I don't want to like badmouth. That's not my objective here. I'm just trying to point out the difference in why it resonated because, well, I have a degree in psychology. It doesn't mean I'm any better than anybody else. I'm a medication assisted recovery specialist because I took the certification course and got certified. I'm not better than anybody else, but I do have information that, I've studied and had to learn. And psychology concepts resonate with me. I just think psychology ought to be addressing mental health, and that may perhaps religion addresses spiritual needs for a person. Um, I'm not religious, so I'll let you know that. I'm not at all religious, and there's reasons for that because I have all kinds of religious trauma from my past, which I'm not going to go into. But I do consider myself to be deeply spiritual, and why is that? Because I actually care about other people. Actually, I'm out there spreading the word in Mara and starting meetings and talking to people and going on recovery events with a tent and a table and answering questions when people walk up to me. And that's how I've been able to grow the groups of just, it's a few members, but that's okay. That's how it all starts. It starts with a few, and then they talk to some friends, and then someone says, well, I'm kind of scared to go there because they don't believe in complete abstinence. Well, many people at Mara are completely absent other than their prescribed medication. Not everybody's on prescribed medication. Some people aren't on anything. It's just that we're a big tent. We want to keep it open, and we don't want to divide people. This is a life and death matter that we live on a daily basis. Life and death. Today I choose life. I don't choose suicide, right? I choose life and living. I choose to, for example, so I don't feel great right now. I got sweaty armpits, right? That just happens. I don't know if this is, the instability of the neurochemistry based on, 54 weeks from my last injection. I have no idea. Maybe it is. I think I've been through this process before and it took a long time. It takes a long time to heal. Um, but the other day, I picked up my iPhone. It was in downtown Charleston, historic district in South Carolina, and it's beautiful. A lot of buildings from the 1800s, beautiful architecture, nice colors. And I just started taking pictures, and it took me right outside of me, and I experienced GABA, dopamine, and glutamate, right? GABA, dopamine, and glutamate firing off like crazy. Yeah,
Mhm.
happy chemicals while I was taking photography. And then when I finished it, I just took the pictures. And then when I got to the editing process and I was sitting there and had my dog beside me and I'm editing them, cropping them and changing the tone and the color and the vibrancy and all that kind of thing and tweaking them so that they get look the best that they could. I had a repeat of all that inside my head. It was the pleasure chemicals, right, that we have inside us. And it taught me a lesson. I need to be doing more photography. I put it down. I need to pick it up because for me, it's meditation. Now, some people can go, and that's meditating. For me, I sort of have to be moving. I have to be engaging with my environment. I have to notice the color, the scent, the patterns and things like that. That's what kind of floats my boat. And to me, paying attention to the here, the now, and the environment is a form of meditation, as is photography. And yesterday I shared that in a meeting, and someone said, to do that too. I can't believe you talked about that. My boyfriend talked about getting me a camera. Someone else that was, I think the person had a year in recovery or something like that. And I'll have 2 years in recovery this time coming up in February 16th. So, yeah, that was really cool. So I was validated right there in the meeting by someone else saying, yeah, that's really cool. I got to do that too. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Had I not been in the Mara meeting and that individual had not been in that Mara meeting, that wouldn't have taken place. And that's what happens at a Mara meeting. We're able to connect with each other and grow together. I'd rather grow with other people than to try doing the stuff I mean, I could read the book. I read the book. I didn't read it in one reading, but I can read the book front to back. And like I said to you yesterday, I said, yeah, reading the book is one thing. Like read the book once, that's cool. You get it down, but the real the real reward the real reward comes in applying it.
Mm.
Like trying some of the ideas for size and seeing how that works. So I shared an idea yesterday. I shared an experience yesterday that then became an idea in somebody else's mind that maybe they want to share that experience as well in order to feel better and get better. And like, isn't that a super reward? It's like, wow, I felt really good because someone was benefited from what I shared. And that person felt really good because I shared what I shared.
Mm-hmm.
And you may think that's not much of anything. So what? It was pick up an iPhone, took some photos, and someone related with it. Hey, you don't know. You have no idea. Maybe doing that to keep somebody alive today. We don't know. Because if you've ever struggled with suicidal ideation, trigger warning, sorry, too late. If you've ever struggled with that, it's a very thin line. Some days, a very thin line. And all you need is for someone to press the shame button, and that could be enough to tip that person over into I'm out of here. So we have to be really careful with the words we use, the language we use. I'm relearning the English language and how to speak without stigmatizing words. I'm not an expert yet. I'm just learning this stuff and practicing on a daily basis.
I really appreciate hearing your joy, the joy in your recovery now, and what Mara's done for you, and how, it reminded me what you just said of that line that I heard in AA all the time, which is the spiritual life is not a theory, we have to live it. And what it made me think personally about yesterday, because I knew we had this a session today. So I sat down and I read the Mara book. I skipped the personal stories, but I read the steps and the traditions, and then I read the about the author in the back. I skipped the stories just so I can get through it, and then I went to the meeting right after that just so I can experience it. And the experience of reading the book was helpful. I took a lot of notes. I wanted to understand how is it different than what I called recovery before, which was AA. What do I think of it now as somebody who's deconstructed from AA and is hypercritical of anything ideological, anything controlling, and like, what do I think of this program? But then it was by experiencing the meeting, which, like you said, yeah, it caught me off guard. I was like, why is someone responding to me right now directly about what they think about what I said? And I was kind of like, whoa. And then it's happening with everybody, not because I'm the new one here or whatever. And so I was just but the way that I felt in the meeting and after the Mara meeting was I felt this, my heart, I felt connected. And there's such a healing power when we're in that space of connection. And so the feeling I got from the meeting, which is going to give me the biochemical stuff that you got with your photos or whatever, it's now I'm feeling dopamine, I'm feeling serotonin, I'm feeling oxytocin for sure for being connected. I'm feeling, all those feelings that I'm feeling from the meeting, I didn't get from reading the book. That was intellectual. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is what their step 4 is. This is what step 5 is. I could see how it's kind of like how it was a spin-off of AA, but not at all AA, meaning fourth step is an inventory, but not at all a moral. It's not at all the same thing. It's inspired by it, so I could see that. But I had a feeling in the meeting that stayed with me, and I was like, oh, this is really nice. And there was 6 of us, and I just felt connected, and I was like, I didn't even know I did not come here for a healing. I literally was not going to turn my camera on. I was going to take notes so that I could better ask you questions on this session. But I got a healing.
Yeah, that was really interesting for me to hear what you said in the meeting because you were open and honest with people and shared your experience because you weren't really ready for that. I don't think that you had the slightest notion beforehand that you might actually like it. I think you may have walked in with, well, yeah, I looked at the book, let's see how the meeting goes, kind of thing. And I'm really glad the person that facilitated it yesterday was the one when you chose to attend. And yeah, she does a really good job, really good job. And some of what she shared as far as feedback, it resonated with you, and
Yeah.
it was good to see that. And that's really what it's all about. I just feel, I don't know what the word is. I feel challenged to educate people about this very, very different program. Unfortunately, I'll say this. Sorry, Jeff. Unfortunately, it's labeled a 12-step program. And because
Mm,
it has 12 steps, and because it's labeled a 12-step program, people have a preconceived notion of what it might be about. And
mm-hmm.
oftentimes they find out it's nothing like they thought.
Mm-hmm.
So it teaches me not to prejudge things having not experienced it, to approach whatever it is in my life with an open mind so that I can be discretionate about it and choose what resonates versus what didn't resonate. Any of it didn't. And then make a decision, is this for me or not? Because no program is going to be perfect. No, and I use the word program because I'm programmed to use the word program, but really we're just a group of people in recovery with peer support for one another. Um, I don't just do Mara. I joined a couple of months ago a dual diagnosis group. I've been in it before. I've actually worked in the dual diagnosis unit of a recovery of a treatment facility. Because I have a degree in psychology, I was just a schlepper. I was just a recovery specialist there. And they let me wear some different hats that they didn't have to pay me for. But they knew I had some aptitudes and strengths, and they recognized those. And they were like, we have a degree, so run with it. So they let me do groups on Saturdays. I went into dual diagnosis group and worked with people that had mental health as well as substance use disorder, AUD. Um, and I did some interesting work that I created based on what I'd observed elsewhere and kind of tweaked it and had my own little process with people. And it's funny, right? Because this goes back, oh, how many? 9 years ago when I was working in treatment. And what I did is I gave them a list of all these words, and they're basically strengths. And I said, circle the top five. So everybody go through and circle their top five, and then I'd ask them what they were in the order. And then I was able to reflect it back to them to help them to say, well, if you look at things utilizing these strengths, doesn't that make it easier? And I don't know if I'm describing this good enough, but it was a process that a lot of them really resonated with. And unfortunately, some of them died. I remember I have one, I just visited her grave when I was up there. Um, she's among 24 friends who passed away. Every single one of them went to meetings, had a sponsor, worked the steps, prayed, meditated, went on commitments, gave back in a moment of weakness. chose to use and died. That's what happens to us when we don't use for well. Our tolerance goes way, way down. And we're trying to produce a feeling in the brain that we don't get to without stopping our breathing first. I laugh, but it's sad. That's really what all these opioid overdoses are. People are trying to get to a certain feeling, a state of feeling, and they never make it. They stop breathing before they get there. And this is a program based in psychology concepts that really help an individual recognize the really good person they are at their core. Because the process forces us to look at our strengths. Everybody has strengths. And I just personally think I still get teary. I can't believe that 4 people are going to die today in this state. On average, 4 from an overdose. And why? Because they didn't think there was another way. They were told, well, you can go elsewhere. And they didn't know where the elsewhere was. And I found that the elsewhere is Mara. And it may not be for everybody. It's probably not going to resonate with everybody. A lot of people are going to disagree with me. I've had people in the state tell me that religion and recovery are synonymous, that you can't have one without the other. Okay, it's your opinion. I'm learning now to honor people's opinions, even if when I disagree. I don't need to bash them or anything. Just recognize that out there. But Mara's here for the person that thought there wasn't anything else. And if you don't mind me sharing something that you said yesterday, can I? You said something along the lines that, wow, if I had known about Mara before, I'd done it differently. I'll say it again, I'm not perfect. I'm just not perfect. I have tons of anxiety, waves of depression going on in me all the time. I hope this won't last forever. I hope it's not a permanent thing. I hope it's just another year, maybe. Oh, I'm sweating armpits and all that stuff. I just have to accept myself for who I am today. And I'm able to do that without thinking I have defects of character. I'm powerless. I'm not powerless, I'm empowered. I don't have defects. I'm not a defect.
100%. Were you surprised to see me yesterday?
No. No, I wasn't surprised to see you. I was impressed. It wasn't surprise. I was impressed. I said, wow, she's doing her homework. She has invested her time into checking out a Mara meeting on her own without even me suggesting it. And I was, wow. Like,
But what you said earlier is correct. I went in with my mind, with my pen, and with my paper, was going to stay off screen. I was kind of bummed that my photo appeared on the Zoom so you can see what I look like because I wanted to be anonymous. But then I felt, screw this, and I turned my video on. I think it's less creepy just to have the video on Zoom. I mean, do whatever you want. But so then I turned my video on, and I didn't realize that I was going to I didn't realize I was going to have, I guess, what I would call like a spiritual experience. Like I wasn't going to, I went in with my brain and I came out with my heart, and I didn't know I was going to have that transformation. I literally went to do research, but I got shifted. I got energetically and emotionally shifted to this connection vibe, a whole different place in my nervous system. And I was like, whoa, it like worked on me, but I wasn't even trying to like, I was trying to like learn, but I like connected. Yeah. So I was totally surprised. And then I shared again at the end, right? And I just related to everybody, even though we had almost nothing in common. But what we said in my own way, it all made sense. And I was like, oh, okay, you're talking about this, this, and this. And I can see how that's relevant for me, even though it's a different story. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
So there's two words that describe what I observed in you yesterday. And I've seen this over and over and over, and it's beautiful every time I see it. It warms my heart. You experienced a paradigm shift. You will never, ever, ever forget yesterday. Your 1 hour experience yesterday shifted everything.
It really is my experience, because every meeting is going to be different, every group is different, every human is different, every interaction is different, right? But my experience yesterday in the meeting is what the Mara book talked about. And I can't promise anybody who's listening or watching that your experience would be like this, but it did feel like I had a non-judgmental experience, and that I had an embodied experience of what non-judgment feels like. And yeah, it was the journey from the head to the heart. I went in with my head like a good student. I want like nerd vibes, and I came out like a connected human being. And that lasted for a while. And I was like, whoa, okay, because I'm not in recovery anymore. I left being in recovery in 2020, but I saw the value of participating in the group. And then even if anybody wanted to go when they're not in recovery anymore, but if you wanted to be in connection, like even if we deconstruct from the idea of what recovery means, but if you want that connection, if you want to be in a group of people who are, in recovery or recovered from their addiction and are connecting as humans, as somebody who shared that as a background, I saw value in that even. And so the two things that I wrote down are, and for anybody who's listening who doesn't never heard of Mara before, number one, these are the main differences that I wrote down from AA. Number one, an absence of the typical 12-step spiritual feature. Not spiritual, not religious, as it is in AA. Not religious. And number two, the addition of prescription assistance, but you don't have to be on anything prescription. But for people who are doing Sinclair method, a lot of the people who might be listening or watching this might be, like me, and their drug, right, was alcohol. And so if they're doing Sinclair method, I thought, wow, if I was doing Sinclair method, this would be great. Mara, doing the Mara book and the Mara program as a way of healing what was maybe underneath my addiction, but also being in community and connection, and also being accepted for the path that I'm choosing, which is science-backed, doctor-approved, modern, all of that. And I left feeling, and I'm actually going to go to a couple of more meetings just so I can have more of an experience, just to have a feel for it. I loved SMART when I went. I went to one SMART meeting and made a video about it for my YouTube channel. I loved Mara even more. And I was just like, whoa, it really made me feel like there are so many paths of recovery, and there's not only one way. And it just really blew me open. It really did, genuinely. And yeah, I had a spiritual experience.
Yeah, so Jeff and I were talking one day, and he's like, stop calling it that and call it this. And he used the word modern. So basically, the word was, let's drop the traditional. We're not a traditional 12-step program. We're just going to call it, we're a modern 12-step program because it's based in evidence, science, evidence. And what you said is that nobody viewing this should feel like there's no place for them. There are so
Mm,
many places you can go. If
hmm
if you love AA, do AA. If you love NA, do NA. If you like FA, do FA. If you like CA, do CA. If you like smart recovery, do smart recovery. If you like Dharma recovery, do
hmm
Dharma recovery. If you like NARA, do NARA. There's not. I'm a poly programmer. That's what I tell people sometimes. I'm a poly programmer, meaning that look, if I need a meeting, I'll go to a meeting. whatever it is. I'll be able to fit in and I'll be able to adapt their lingo and all that stuff. And I can sit in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting today and be okay. Even if I disagree with 95% of what's said, I can still sit in there and be okay. It took me a while to get there, but I can do it now because I've gone through the 12 steps in Marin and practicing on a daily basis. A new way of thinking, right? Because I've never ever thought about non-judgment until I got to Mara. Never. And even harm reduction, I was totally against harm reduction when I started working in treatment. And I think the facility was wise enough that they knew that a lot of the employees weren't embracing it, and they understood how important it was to embrace harm reduction. So we all went through training in harm reduction. We all became harm reduction specialists, basically, and we learned how, like on the back of my shirt, read it.
Shame kills, love heals. Yeah.
Yeah, man, shame kills. You don't think shame kills? Shame kills. It doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help anybody thinking they're a defect, to think that they've been stigmatized. You're not in recovery because you're on, that medication. First off, that individual telling you that, they're not a physician and they know nothing about it. Zero. They don't know anything about the medication. Furthermore, I've witnessed so many people put their lives together again, whether they stay on that medication for their life or whether they choose, like myself, to come off the medication and try to live life without. But you want to know something? If I go another year and I'm feeling like I'm feeling, I'm going to be considering going back on the medication. That doesn't mean I would, but if I did, why would I feel shame? You know?
Right.
The medication helps save people's lives, helps their brain chemistry to restabilize, helps their frontal cortex to heal so that they can take in the information that they're getting from whichever program resonates with them, whichever peer support group resonates with them. And for me, and I'm just speaking for me, I have a well-rounded support system in place. I have a dual diagnosis group with a peer group leader who is trained in facilitating that. He has more credentials than I do, way more than I do. And I can pick up the phone and contact him at any time and he'll be there for me, as well as any member of that group. I have a therapist who's fully trained in CBT and DBT, uh, we'll call it theory or practice. And he has been amazing. And there's a guy that fired me. He fired me. I didn't share this experience with you. So I was asked because I had the pain situation going on and everything, and I was, using all these other things, and I was honest and open with them, and they said, "You need to go on that." I said, "Okay, what do I need to do?" They said, "Well, you got to, well, let me find out." So they called the facility and they got back with me and said, "You need to abstain for 24 hours." And I said, "Oh boy, okay, I'm going to be pretty sick." They go, "Yeah, you probably will be, but you have to go in sick." I go, "Okay," because they're going to transition me from buprenorphine over to methadone. So I get there at 5:15 in the morning. At 7:30 in the morning, they call me in the office and they say, "We're not going to dose you. You have to wait 3 more days." No, I can't do this outside a medical facility. And furthermore, why would you even make a suggestion like that to me? I was furious. I got home, I took my buprenorphine so that I'd stop the withdrawal, and contacted my therapist and said, "WTF? What's
Mm-hmm.
going on?" And they were like, "Oh, I don't know." And then I got angry. And that was my reaction. So my reaction to all this anger and shame and stigma and guilt and all this other stuff, they're effing with me. They did this on, all kinds of craps. spinning around my head, and I started leaving voicemails. Lawyer up, sucker! I'm coming after you. Well, anyways, that didn't go over too well, and I got fired. So I went into treatment. I was in treatment for 6 weeks, came out of treatment, come back home. My wife didn't leave me. I thought she was. She didn't. Everything was cool at home. And I sent an email to my therapist and said, can we at least meet to have closure? I feel bad about what I did. I'm really sorry I reacted that way. I wish I hadn't, but I did, and I'm sorry. I apologize. This isn't the end. And I got an email back, sure, can you meet, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. So I went in, had a conversation with him, completely owned my stuff, said, I want to work with you still. Can we still do that? And he goes, okay. So back together, and here we are 2 years, almost 2 years later. And that man, my therapist, it totally embraces Mara and what it's done for me. And even though he only knows what I've told him about it, which is probably a lot, yeah, he totally embraces this. And the other thing I'll share, I don't mind. I've got a mental health issue. It's called BPD, borderline personality disorder. I went through the DSM criteria with my therapist and answered all the questions in there. Oh yeah, I got it. I've had it since I can remember. I don't know if I was born with it or where it came. Just some trauma. I'm not sure. I've had a ton of traumatic events. It's I've almost died more than one time. A lot of times, and it started really young. I almost drowned. I did. I was drowning, and someone saved me. So, and I was very, very young. But yeah, BPT tells me that you don't like me. You'll never like me. You're going to leave me. So I better leave you before you leave me. And I get really angry really fast. And I don't like that part about the illness. So my ability to sit with the anger I'm still working on and not respond to that, not react to it. Because when I do, then I usually, shifts the focus from that person to me. So maybe I'm upset with them and it's valid, but then I respond to it and now it's my reaction that's I'm the bad guy. They flip it back on me and I'm the bad guy and then I got to make amends and all my stuff. And lots of times in that process, the other person's not like me. So that's me. So I got a dual diagnosis group. I've got my Mara meetings, both the ones that I facilitate. So that's a different experience for me. So when I'm in a Mara Zoom meeting, I'm not facilitating currently. I'm a member and I'm participating. But when I'm running an in-person meeting, I'm a facilitator, so I have a different role. And not that it doesn't work, it helps me, when I have people there and I'm able to move a meeting forward and that kind of thing and get accomplished what we want to get accomplished in there, which is we'd like to walk out of the meeting feeling a little better about ourselves. Because when I feel good about me, my relation with you is going to be different on a different level than if I don't feel good. So if I'm doing
If there's somebody who is either trying to get sober right now or doesn't want to get sober, but they want to go to some sort of program because they've struggled before and they're doing moderation management or whatever, or they want to leave or have left 12 step AA, something, and they're looking for another recovery path, what would you want them to know about Mara? And I guess a better, simpler way to ask this is, what do you wish you knew? Like,
uh, Well, marriage just came about in 2018. 7 years is really not that. When you get older, almost 7 years goes like that. I just want them to know that we are completely accepting of where that individual is on their path, wherever that is on the path. And if they're not sure they want to be clean, dude, I was in treatment 3 weeks before I had the slightest desire that when I get out of here, I'm going to stay abstinent, right? And I'm not going to repeat the process that made my life unmanageable. Really, I was unmanageable. So, yeah, it's just a non-judgmental environment is probably something you've never experienced. So why don't you give it a shot? Give it a try. A non-judgmental environment where we're there to not interfere with anyone else's recovery, but especially not to interfere with our own recovery. And that's a whole different ball game on a whole nother level. And if you're not sure you want to be in recovery, that's okay. Fantastic. Come to our meeting. You decide. I'm not going to decide that for you. You come and see if it's anything that we talk about, you feel better, or buy the book. It's only $10 digital, Kindle, $10. There's now a companion workbook. So for those people that need to have uh, a more guided process to work in the steps, the workbook came out a week ago. I just got it. I haven't read the whole workbook, but I've looked at a lot of the questions and I'm going to go through it. Even though I've gone through the process, I go through it and see if there's anything in the workbook that I didn't think about. We're just basically about love you up, buddy. We just want to love you up. And
That's what it felt
the only
like.
requirement is a desire to live safely. So, I mean, that's a pretty low bar of entry. If you have a desire to live safely, that's it. You don't even have to be practicing living safer. You haven't even got there yet. You might come to a few meetings and make a decision for yourself that, yeah, that makes some sense. I think I want to live safer. Okay, so how can I live safer? Well, put a pen to paper and figure out different ways you can live safer today, right? Define that for yourself because it's not up to us to define what living safely means for you. That's for you. And why not be supported in your effort? And then the final piece is you don't have to make it a career, but being available to help another is very rewarding when that takes place. And especially when someone says, you have no idea what I was thinking of doing. And after I spoke with you or went to that meeting, I wasn't thinking that when the meeting ended. That's another reason. And everything in life, right? Don't judge it without trying.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Try it and then make up your mind. Not judge, but make up your mind about something. Whether I like the word resonate. It either resonates or it doesn't. If Mara doesn't resonate, you're not going to break my hurt my feelings or anything. You know, we know it's not for everybody. If anything that I said today resonates in your heart, try some meetings because maybe that's the solution for you. Maybe you'll find what you've been looking for. You won't know unless you go look for it.
I'm very interested in, because I know that you got into recovery in the first place like a couple of decades ago. If at that time Mara existed, would you, what you know now about NA and Mara, what would you choose? Are you able to kind of put yourself back in that mindset?
Oh yeah, unquestionably it would be Mara. And the reason and possibly because I worked 2 years in treatment and watched a lot of people die from this illness we have. I watched a lot of people die. I was working on a unit from 3 to 11:30, quarter of 12, midnight, and I got there at 2:30 so that I wasn't going to be hit with surprises. I wanted to ease in because it was funny. It's like the middle of the afternoon. People go nuts in treatment. Like the changing of the guard, they take advantage of the chaos and create more chaos. So yeah, I showed up to on the unit, and the place was crazy. And the person that was leaving at 3 just wanted to get out and go home. And I'm like, where's so and so? I don't know. We haven't heard from her. What I didn't know at the moment was that she was down the street shooting up and died in the bathroom. And she was clean up until that moment. And yeah, I don't know. They called somebody to help me from another unit. They pulled somebody from another unit that didn't, I guess it had, anyways, that needed to come and help me. And yeah, that was really sad. So yeah, so I've experienced the death of an employee, like the person I work with, my, like we were friends and everything. I've experienced that as well as patients passing. I'd walk in and say, "Do you hear who just died?" And I'm like, "Oh no, and that's just a different experience than most people have with addiction. If you haven't worked in treatment, there's a lot you don't know.
Why do you, from your perspective, why do you think Mara is a better solution?
The bottom line, non-judgment is our code. You will not be judged at Mara. You will never be asked by a Mara member, when are you getting off that medication? Whatever you bring to the table, you bring to the table, and we're going to love you up, buddy.
It makes me like want to cry. It makes me emotional to hear that. I know, and I think part of why it makes me emotional is because I felt it yesterday, and then so I'm just like, yeah, I'm thank you, Bob. Thank you. I am so glad you reached out to have this conversation with me. Thank you for introducing me to Mara, and I just feel really happy for you and for anybody who listens to this who finds this as their path to recovery and it resonates with them.
That was the purpose. The purpose was that I thought about the four people that are going to die in this state today, and I thought, isn't there anything I can do about it? And even if it's not the four people in the state, well, it's 50 states, right? Whatever states we got. I mean, that's 200 people every day are dying from substance use disorder or alcohol use disorder, because alcohol kills too. I didn't tell you I sponsored somebody and he rejected my sponsorship. I was in AA, I was a sponsor, and I stayed in communication with him, but couldn't tell him anything. And his wife called me one day. His wife called me one day and said, he won't answer the phone and we're in another state because we're separated. Can you go check on him, please? And I went to the house and I looked in the window. I didn't see anything. And I walked to the front door and I looked through the front door and I saw this humongous vase broken, smashed all over the place. And I thought, wow. So I called her back and told her what I had seen, and she thanked me. And then at 2 in the morning, I got a phone call from the police, and they asked me a lot of questions. About 40 minutes on the phone, they told me right off the go, they said, "You're the last person seen. You're the last person that was present on that property. And we have questions to ask you." And I just share with him, I'm a sponsor. His wife called me. I went to check. I didn't see anything. Is he okay? They wouldn't tell me anything. They said, you got to call her. And then I think it was around 7 in the morning. I finally reached her and she said, he's dead. He had bled out. He was upstairs drinking himself to whatever. And he bled out upstairs and fell down the stairs, crawled to the living room, and I didn't see him looking through the living room window because the sun was behind me and I couldn't see in the house. And that was really hard to go through. So I'm hoping that reaching out to you might prevent something like that, because that really hurt. It hurts just to even remember it. So, I've got stuff to offer people, and take it or leave it. I'm okay, whatever you do. I'm just trying to help out, and in the same token, I get a lot of help from people when I need it. And believe me, there are NARA meetings I go and I need it, and I'm lumped up every time.
Well, I did see that yesterday. I did see the loving up. I saw how close y'all are, and then the newcomers were loved up on too. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. It's great to hear your story, and I just can't thank you enough for reaching out and introducing me to this recovery path. I can't wait to let people know about it.
I think the work you do is really important. I know that some probably would not agree with that, but I think it's really important to acknowledge those that have felt similarly, um, having gone through a process that they discovered over time that just wasn't resonating, and thinking that there's nothing else for people. Well, there is. And that was my purpose today, just to let your audience know that there is another way and we're not like them. And I don't want to take that doesn't take away anything, any of your experiences that you've had over there, but we're over here. And if you'd like to check it out, check it out.
Yeah, well said. I love it.
You are
Yeah.
probably a lot smarter than me, but I just really respect you a lot. Uh, Yeah, it's amazing the amount of information that you have been able to internalize and that you can communicate to people, and the way that you conduct interviews. And I've watched a number of the interviews on YouTube, and yeah, you definitely provide a service. And I understand that people that traditional 12-step recovery does resonate with are not going to appreciate that, but that's okay. We have just as much a right to talk about what we like versus what we don't like, and then make a decision on ourselves, what we think is the best place for us. And go where you feel comfortable, wherever that is, or try something else.
Yeah. I mean, I almost didn't make it out of AA alive, which is why I do what I do, because I know some people don't. It was the hardest thing I've ever done is leaving AA and having to deal with all of the feelings, the mindfuckery of it all, and to not have any of my experience validated made it that much harder. And I, just like the people who are in AA, just like you and Mara, just like me and deprogramming AA, we don't want people to die, period. We just have different perspectives on what that means and different problems that we're speaking to. But nobody wants anybody with addiction to die. We're all on the same page.
Well, look you up, meet you in person at some point, and if you ever come, it's a shame that there's a lot of people in my life that I'll never meet face to face, but it's always special when I do.
I love that so much. I don't want this to end because this has been such a good podcast.
I know my
I'm going
wife's
to
gonna
make
say,
more
there she
about the
goes.
book. I'm going to make more about the program. I want to have a mini series about this methodology because I'm just so, yeah, it just resonates so much with me, like in my bones, in my soul. And I appreciate you and your story. You are a freaking survivor. You are a success story. I love your humility in it all, but you've been to hell and back a couple of times and you're here to talk about it and you found something that works for you now that lights you up and loves you up. And I'm really glad that we can let other people know about this because you're not the only one who's been to hell and back a couple of times.
Yep. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've made a friend.
Yeah, new friend. You got a new bestie up in here for sure.
Right.
Thank you so much, everybody who's came today for Sobriety Bestie podcast. I'm so curious. What do you think? Have you been to one of these meetings? Is this new for you? What came up for you in this podcast? Definitely join the conversation below in the comments. Let us know what you think. I can't wait to hear from you in the comments below. Take care and have a beautiful day. Bye, everybody.